Chelsea are moving quick in this transfer window. I mean, they're buying Gittins, they're buying João Pedro, they've brought Liam Delap. They are not shying away from spending any money. But the question that I hear so much is, how are Chelsea able to do this? Does PSR not exist for them? Does FFP not exist for them? How do they keep getting away with this? It's simple, guys. Chelsea have found multiple loopholes and they're just taking advantage of it. And you know what? It's completely 100% legal because the Premier League cannot change the rules without getting enough votes. So Chelsea are just going to exploit it until the Premier League change their rules. Be sure to hit the like button. Be sure to subscribe. You guys know what it is. Now let's start with the biggest context. Blue Code took over Chelsea back in 2022. They took over for over 4.25 billion pounds. That was a high fee for a club to take over 100%. Now we know Abramovich had to sell. Now when they took over, Chelsea had the highest operating loss in the 22-23 financial year out of all of the Premier League teams. And within a couple of years, Chelsea have been able to turn that into 100% maximum profit as much as possible. Now, how have they exploited loopholes that has allowed them to spend over £1 billion? Well, let's start with the main one. The main one that they started with was long contracts. Yes, if you guys remember, there was the jokes about death row contracts. Chelsea were offering 7, 8, 9-year contracts to the players that they signed. Now, why is it important for PSR reasons? Well, it's important because number one, amortization, which is an accounting concept on your balance sheet, directly impacts your PSR position. Essentially, the more number of years you can spread a transfer fee across, the better it is for you from a PSR perspective. Now let's take player A for example. A football club buys player A for £50 million on an 8-year contract. That cost of that player in their assets, in terms of their assets and on their balance sheet in their financial year, will be 6.25 million per year. Because why? They're able to spread the 50 million across the 8 years of the contract. So the more years, the smaller the fee on your balance sheet, and essentially the more compliant you can be with PSR. Now, on the flip side, it only took UEFA 1 year of Chelsea exploiting this for them to implement a new rule, and the Premier League essentially ended up also ratifying that rule as well, where clubs now have to do that. Now, because of Chelsea finding that loophole, clubs can still spread the cost of a transfer fee over a number of years, but it can only be across a number of 5 years. So yes, you can still offer a player a 7, 8-year contract, but it's got no benefit to you because you can only spread that cost over 5 years. So if we go back to that player A example, instead of spreading a cost of 8 years and 50 million transfer fee, you now can only do it over 5 years. So now your asset, in terms of what you're reporting in your balance sheet, will go up from 6.25 million if it was an 8-year contract to 10 million a year. So you kind of see that it will cost you more on your balance sheet, which means your PSR limit that you're allowed, or your threshold, will significantly go down. Now, for the Premier League, and I know you guys hear PSR a lot, PSR is the profit and sustainability rules. Essentially, clubs are allowed across a 3-year financial period, they are allowed to report a loss of 105 million. Yeah, so essentially it's like 35 million a year. But again, there are some ways that you can utilize exploiting PSR rules, because it is exploitation. Number one, spending on your youth academy. Number two, investment in your women's team. Number three, infrastructure such as training grounds, stadium improvements, etc. All of that can be offset against your PSR, and clubs just find a loophole around it. Now, another thing that Chelsea have done, which is better than what probably other teams do, is sell homegrown players for reasonable and very, very profitable transfer fees. Now, even before Blue Code took over, they were selling the likes of Fikayo Tomori, Tammy Abrahams, Loftus-Cheek, and then Blue Code came in and they were able to sell Conor Gallagher, they were able to sell Mason Mount. When you sell academy players, you guys know that is 100% profit. So that is another way that they've been able to spend so much money and still be PSR compliant. But the next two things that I'm about to mention is probably the biggest loophole that they found, and the Premier League are not able to stop it at the moment. Now, the first one that they've been able to do is sell 2 hotels that they own around the Stamford Bridge area. And who have they sold it to? They have sold it to a sister company. Now, Blue Co is the parent company, and under that umbrella of Blue Co have multiple, I think it's over 20 companies or businesses that they own, Chelsea Football Club being one of them. Now, what you can do when you are a parent company is sell from one of your sister companies to your other sister company, and that allows that sister company A to report a profit or a sale or a source of revenue. And even though at the top level, when it comes to doing Blueco's account, it'll basically net off. It will essentially end up netting off. But for Chelsea's reasonings, this is probably the best thing that they are able to do at the moment. So they sold 2 hotels for 76 million pounds. Yes, 76 million pounds, which they can report as revenue. And the second thing that they've been able to do, which not many other clubs have done, and I actually think many more clubs will actually start to follow suit before the Premier League actually close this loophole, is sell their women's team. Now, Chelsea women are one of the most profitable teams in England and English women's football. They make around 11 million in revenue from broadcasting, from commercial stuff, from merchandise, etc., etc. But like a lot of other women's teams, they tend to report a loss because the value of the expenditure of a women's team in women's football tends to outdo the revenue that they're able to bring in. Chelsea were able to sell their women's team for 198 million pounds. Nearly 200 million they have been able to report in their upcoming financial accounts. Is Chelsea women worth 200 million? I don't think there's many women's football clubs that are worth that much at the moment, given the fact of how much revenue they bring in and how much of a loss they make every year. But they sold it, and they sold it to who? Yes, guys, they sold it to a sister company, another company owned by Blueco. Now, as I mentioned, the Premier League are trying to close this gap that Chelsea are utilising, but they were unable to do so in June. The Premier League were unable to get enough votes to actually implement a rule that would stop this from happening. Aston Villa are now reportedly looking at selling their women's team to allow them to be PSR compliant. And like I said, guys, everything Chelsea are doing, it's outright legit. It's nothing illegal they're doing. It's just that the Premier League have realised that now a football club or a football entity like Blueco are running a football club like a business. They're being able to find corporate governance issues. They're identifying corporate governance issues, and they're identifying loopholes that they can take advantage of to maximize their revenues, maximize their profits. Now, just for some context, like I said, guys, in 22-23 financial year, Chelsea reported a operating loss, one of the highest in the Premier League. And in the 22-23 season, or in the 22-23 financial year, they reported a minus 90 million loss before tax. The following financial year, the 23-24 season, they then reported a profit before tax. Yes, they went from a loss to a profit in the space of 12 months of 128 million, which means that is a change in about 200 million worth, from minus 90 to plus 128. That is a huge jump, and a lot of businesses don't really do that in the space of 12 months. So I'm impressed that Chelsea and their ownership, they have the right people in mind, they have the right people in place to find little loopholes that they can exploit, that they can take advantage of, and the Premier League essentially are struggling to do anything about it. Like I said, everything Chelsea are doing is totally legit. You guys are wondering, and people are always speaking about, how can they spend 1 billion? Does PSR not exist for them? It exists for them, but they've just found loopholes and they've exploited it. And I don't know what you guys think of this, but from a business perspective, essentially this is very smart, because Chelsea are being run as a business while still being able to move in the transfer window effectively. When they want a player, I remember last summer, Pedro Neto, bam, done like that. This summer we've seen Delap, bam, done like that. Gittins, João Pedro. They're bringing in everyone quickly and ready to drop money on them. But now it's down to the Premier League to find a way to stop this from happening, because mark my words, guys, if Chelsea are able to exploit this for the number of years that they've had have been owned by Blueco, which has been about 3 years, if they've been able to find different loopholes every single time to maximize profits, maximize revenue, and bring them closer and in line and in a positive position for a PSR perspective, it's not a long time before other clubs start doing it. I'm telling you guys right now, clubs who are struggling with PSR will start doing exactly what Chelsea are doing. They will start doing inter-transfers of assets between sister companies. They will sell their women's team. We saw Lyon actually do it. Lyon sold their women's team when they were struggling financially towards the end of last year. It's only a matter of time before Premier League teams start jumping on the bandwagon and doing exactly what Chelsea do, and then the Premier League won't be able to stop it. If you enjoy these kind of videos, guys, let me know if you want to see more financial breakdowns of clubs. But people are always saying, how are Chelsea able to do this? It's 100% legit.